Most of Star Trek is set in a futuristic version of our own galaxy, the Milky Way, a small barred spiral warped disk of stars and interstellar dust spiralling around a gravitational singularity almost 100,000 light-years wide, although the science is still ongoing. It's the second largest galaxy of our local group, yielding the gold medal to Andromeda, which is over twice its size. So, move over Milky Way, I'm going to be talking about your more successful big sister. There's not much to talk about Messier 31, also known as the Andromeda Galaxy, that we really know about in Star Trek. This is due to the limitations of even its sci-fi travel, and the sheer magnitude of space. It's a little known fact that space is really big. Even at maximum warp in the 2260s, it was estimated to take thousands of years, covering the 2.5 million light-years of intergalactic void to reach our closest neighbour galaxy. Communications with Andromeda was hypothesised to take 600 years or more by Commander Spock. For decades, astronomers debated just on what exactly Andromeda was, considering it originally to be a nebula or a solar system in formation, not realising just how big nor far away it was. It wasn't until the technology was developed to observe supernova remnants that people began to realise that if it were actually within the borders of the Milky Way, the exploding suns should have been brighter. Edward Hubble brought clarity along with other mounting evidence in 1925 using the Hooker telescope to identify smaller components of it, proving it was indeed a separate galaxy. It's about 10 billion years old, and like our own galaxy, it has smaller satellite galaxies that orbit it, and according to Star Trek, is home to life of its own, at least for now. The only lifeforms that are 100% canonically depicted in Star Trek as being from Andromeda are actually both from the original series. They are the mysterious makers of some androids and the Kelvin Empire. The makers are not encountered, but are only referenced as apparently they've gone extinct some time ago, leaving behind only their creations. What is known of their society is that they established a high level of sophistication and seemed to value exploration as one of their core tenets. They established outposts in both Andromeda and the Milky Way, however their home planet's own star went supernova and fractured their government, power, empire, whatever, eventually leading them to die out over time. The Kelvins, however, were directly from Andromeda. Their homeworld was called Kelva, and the seat of their empire. Their empire was far less benign than that of the Makers, and these non-humanoid beings subjugated and controlled other civilizations through conquest. However, much as with the Makers, they were in search of a new home. They detected rising radiation levels throughout Andromeda that would prove incompatible with their own lives, and as such took the drastic course of action to seek other galaxies to scout and invade. Although much more advanced than Starfleet, they were ill-prepared for the galactic barrier at the edge of the Milky Way and totaled their own vessel, hence their need to hijack the Enterprise to return. In extra-canonical sources, it's also alluded that the Voyager Decker entity went to explore Andromeda for a time, and that the Iconians had had a presence here too, through the use of their gateway technology, and may in fact still be there. It might be just me, but I'd love to see some Star Trek tackle Andromeda. It's still such an unknown. Admittedly, 2 examples don't set a trend, but I find it fascinating that both of the known canon depictions of races from our neighbouring galaxy are fleeing extinction events. For me, from this limited description, it paints the premise that Andromeda is in fact a dying galaxy in some way. The radiation spikes driving out a civilization, and the fact that a supernova somehow completely destroyed another intergalactic power. That last point has seen some resurgence in the Milky Way with the destruction of Romulus through a similarly unexpected catastrophe, and again, Extra materials suggest that the Romulan supernova was far more accelerated and had no natural origin, coupled with the plot points from Picard, which alluded to an extra-dimensional machine race, the Maker's only surviving legacy being their robots, and it's not hard to let the imagination run wild. There's so much set up in the lore that an Andromeda mystery could slide into. Perhaps the machine race from Picard surfaced from there and is responsible for the events in driving out its inhabitants, although personally I'd prefer something more alien than a robot army. Add to this the notion that there is no protective galactic barrier around the Andromeda like the Milky Way, and perhaps there is some external threat to galaxies in general that the Milky Way is shielded from. Whatever is going on over in Andromeda, the fleeting evidence encountered by Starfleet in Star Trek says it's probably not good, and as a larger plotline that could be years in the making, I think there is a lot of potential. Starfleet in general has not ventured much beyond the Milky Way, not counting trips to other dimensions or planes of existence. As mentioned in my subspace video, the Traveller once threw the Enterprise D beyond the confines of our galaxy and into the M33 Triangulum galaxy, which is in fact further away than Andromeda at 2.72 million light-years from the Milky Way. Estimates in the show put them at over 300 years of travel to get them home again, which I call bull on. Voyager was expected to take 70 years to cross the Milky Way, and that was only 75,000 light-years, so crossing the 2.72 million ain't gonna only take 4 times as long. Okay, so the exact line is over 300 years, which is technically as correct as saying the universe is older than 2 years, but that's still a bit shy of the 2,548 years Voyager would have taken to cross over to M33, despite the advances in warp technology over time. There is also the existence of our own galaxy's satellites, several of which have been mentioned on Star Trek lore. In fact, the flying neural parasites encountered in 2267 that latched onto people's backs and formed a neural network were speculated to have originated from another galaxy, and later background canon suggests ongoing studies have narrowed this down to the Large Magellanic Cloud. This mini-galaxy is joined by the Small Magellanic Cloud, only 210,000 light-years away. In the books centred around Captain Riker's tenure aboard the USS Titan, the exploration vessel actually encounters a shortcut to this tiny galaxy and gets to explore for a bit. They manage to discover more star jellies, like those encountered at Farpoint Station, and meet several other species, one of which is a relation of humanity that had been displaced by early warp experiments. Trippy, but it makes sense, I promise. There are other species in Star Trek lore too that are speculated to have an extra-galactic origin, usually mentioned in Memory Beta, such as the Planet Killer Doomsday weapons, again from the original series era, and even the Gorn, according to some sources. Extra-galactic voyages, I'd like to think, are the next steps for Starfleet exploration, and I'd rather see that than messing around with alternate universes and dimensions, although those can be fun too. However, with even Starfleet's current level of technology, that seems unlikely without shortcuts like wormholes or spatial interfaces to make crossing the literal void in between galaxies more attainable. Much of this fascination with other galaxies in fact comes from TOS, and it's sort of waned in recent years, but I'd love to see it return. Where would you set your ideal Star Trek series? Thanks for watching this light lore video on the Andromeda Galaxy and what little we know about it from the universe of Trek. I've been Rick, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.